Now we need to wire our wings in position. To do that, we're going to be using 2 pieces of 9-gauge soft black wire. This is the same wire we use for wiring the wings and for setting the head. We're going to sharpen one end of it on each of our wires. The first step is we have to make some bends on our black wire. The first bend we're going to make at the top, this is the sharpened end. This is going to be going into the form right here. I'm going to measure down with my finger to roughly where we're level with the base, or equal with the base, which is going to be about right here. I'm going to make a bend like this. I'm going to curve it so it looks like this. It's going to go in like this. Now I'm going to make some curve to this 9-gauge soft wire through this area here, like that. That gives a curve to our wing. What's nice about this 9-gauge soft, you can keep adjusting it very easily. Okay, we're going to start with that. I'm just going to make one bend like this, just so it's not hanging too far off our base. To put this in, you go underneath the wing with the sharpened end. There's some fluff feathers right underneath the wing. You make sure those aren't being trapped in. Turn it into place, and we're going to push it into the form right underneath the hackle. If you recall, when we did the form prep work, we made a cut back there, and I said we're going to be using that cut later. And that's part of the reason we made the cut, so it's easier to shove this wire in. And put it into the form roughly half an inch. Doesn't have to go in very far, you're just holding the wings up. And just hinging this wire down and adjusting for the wing. And I like to look at it from the head side, looking down. Make sure everything is level. Make sure our wing does have some curve in it. Okay, once we have that rough position set, we turn the bird to the back side, and we're going to lock our wire in place. Now to do that, I've got a reversible driver. I've got a brass hanger. You can use anything for this. You just need something with 2 holes. Put that over the top of the wire. Might be a little hard to see what I'm doing here, but you're just going to take 2 screws and put it into that hanger over the top of the wire to hold it in place. It's like a strap, basically. You can see where I put that. Just put another screw in this side. Okay, now that's been locked in. We're going to shift our bird around. Look at it from the side angle. Make sure the wire is not obstructing our wings anywhere. It isn't. We still have a nice curve here. Shift it around and look at it head on. You can see how much I have it out. I have it out quite a bit to make it look like a bird is strutting. You want to make sure you have that. Because we were shaking the bird around a little bit, I also look at the scapular groups again just to make sure that they haven't fallen down, and they haven't. Now we'll do the other wing the same way. We have the wing wire attached to the other side the same way we did on our show side, I'm calling it, because this is the better side of the turkey. Flip around so you can see the back side of the bird. You want to make sure that your primaries are lining up here and that your secondaries are also lining up. You don't want to have one wing too much further forward than the other. A slight deviation is okay, but you want to try to get it as close as possible. It just makes the overall mount look nicer. Next thing we do after we have both of them wired up is we just turn it around from the front side. Look straight on, and you want to make sure that both wings are matching up. that way. And they are, you can see how I brought them out a little bit further too. I still have them tucked underneath the breast feathers, but I have them out like it's strutting. Turkeys will quite often have their wings out quite a ways when they're strutting, so keep that in mind. The next step is we have to set the secondaries and the primaries so they dry in the correct position. To do that, we're going to be using masking tape. Again, we get this from Uline. I talked about this a little bit earlier in the course. It's important that you use a masking tape that does not leave a sticky residue. This particular kind does not leave that, so that's what I recommend. We'll also be using an eye pin to do this. Pull off a piece that's about 18 to 20 inches. On the very end of it, I'm just going to fold it over so it's not sticky right there. Take the eye pin, push it through it. Lift up the hackle. Just push that eye pin right into the form. And we pull the tape out. Put it on my tail for storage. Start lining up these wing coverts, which are these shiny feathers. These are our secondaries. Just getting those up into position. Grab my tape, drop it down over the coverts and over the secondaries. And I just temporarily, I'm going to fold it back up like that. I'm going to work on the primaries. Now we're going to work on the primaries. I start by taping on the furthest primary back, and then I'm just taking my fingers and my thumb here, just lining them up as I'm moving forward. As we get more forward, you can start to leave a little bit of a gap right through in here. The farther forward you step these, the more gap you can leave. Then I just tape it right onto my soft black wire that we use as our wing support. I grab onto this tape, drop it down. It's another layer of support. Now we'll repeat that process on the other wing. We have our wings taped on both sides. Just going to swing this around, see what it looks like from the front. I'm just going to turn it so you can see the side that has the damage. See what that looks like, all taped up. Some of the damage in this area here, and in the scapula groups, and in the wing coverts, we cannot repair unless we put some new feathers in. That's up to you. Because it's just on one side of the turkey, it's not on both sides. I normally would leave this level of damage, just groom it a little bit more. We'll turn it over. You can see in the back what it looks like. Again, you want to make sure everything is properly lined up. Now we just need to pin up some of the skin from the back side of our turkey. We're going to be pinning it up to right here. I'm going to be using my pin pusher and 1-inch bank pins. That step is complete. Now we just look at it from behind here and make sure this fluff of feathers looks good. You're really not going to be seeing it, but I checked through it anyways. Now we'll put the tail coverts in place. These are the tail coverts. We removed these from the rest of the bird when we were sewing up the wings. It's important that they go on to the back of the tail in this pose. You do not want these sticking straight up here. They should be falling back on top of the wing feathers. I should say the secondary wing feathers. I do one side at a time. I kind of line them up so they're almost centered to where I want them. I'm going to start on the right side. I'm just going to be using some hot glue. Some right on the hot glue we had originally put on the tail. I'm going to press them up into the glue. And as they're starting to cure out, I'm just going to take my right hand and groom on them a little bit. We just hold that in place. Okay, now we're going to put glue on the other side of our tail coverts. Just going to put this right on the tail. Again, same as the other side. Push them into place and hold them. You want to make sure that they line up and they look the same on both sides. Okay, now we have our tail coverts in place. You can see what they look like, how they interact with the rest of the bird. Now we just need to look at the tail. Sometimes it gets a little bit frayed up from this, so I just run my fingers over it to zip that back in place. There's a lot of touch-up grooming you can do on a turkey. You can keep coming back for days and doing that. I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. I'm probably going to do a little bit more grooming right through here on these wing feathers. I want to monitor the scapular groups to make sure that they stay where I put them overnight. And there's always more grooming you can do on the breast feathers. You just want to keep making sure that these are lining up. Just keep going back, looking at them in different lights from different angles. I'm going to just swing this thing around so you can see it from the front side. Get a shot of it from up here, and also down here you can see the leg placement compared to everything. See how it goes together. You can see how it looks kind of skirted through here. That's what you want to see. Swing it over again so you can see the damaged side. Again, with this damage, we can replace it if we feel we need to by adding in some feathers. This side is going to be towards the wall. It's not the show side, so we're going to be leaving it basically how you see it here. I'm going to be doing a little bit more grooming work through here. See the back of the turkey, how the coverts are down. They're not up. That's very important, and you'll see that on the reference picture on your screen. Again, that's what they should look like, and they're covering the secondaries. Flipping it back around to our show side, talk about a few key anatomical points. One of those is the head height. The height of the head should never be any higher than the center of the hackle. So if we use this, we're just at touching the center of the hackle. Also, if we would fold this head back in a little bit more, it would be level with the top of our pana feathers directly behind the head, or the cape of feathers. You do not want the top of the head going much higher than this cape of feathers after it's been put back into it. When they're in full strut, they can put their heads quite a ways back into that cape of feathers. I personally like to mount them like you see here. I just think it looks a little bit nicer, but that's completely up to you. If you want to tip this back in more, you can. This was a dominant bird. It was doing a lot of strutting, and it has a very large head, even for its body size. Normally you would see a head that's just a little bit smaller on a 20-pound turkey, but when we got this one back from the freeze dryer, it matched up with some of the reference notes we'd made about it. So it's definitely the head that was on the bird. To accommodate for that, we set the head itself down just a little bit more than I normally do, so it wasn't running up any higher than the back here. I do want to touch a little bit on shingling the breast feathers. On a bird in this particular condition, especially with the other side's damage, I generally would not recommend shingling the breast feathers. If there's an area with missing feathers, it shows up more when you shingle it. And all shingling is basically lifting up all of these feather tracks or venting the feather tracks. It makes the turkey look bigger. Most turkey mounts are not shingled. On commercial mounts, I really wouldn't recommend getting into it too much unless you're getting a lot more for your time. If somebody brings in a turkey here and it's a good specimen and they want it shingled, my starting price is $250 extra because of the time it takes to do it correctly. Because we use latex in the breast feathers, we have plenty of time to work with our shingling. To start the shingle, you would normally come back in about 2 weeks and start lifting the breast feather, because then the caulking would just be setting up enough you can do it. You want to come back every day and lift up those feather groups until it starts to stick. But I'm going to show you how to do it today, even though we just mounted it. There's a couple rules with shingling. The first rule is you don't shingle too close to the head. You come down to about where the beard starts. So we're going to start our shingling out here. You always shingle from the beard out. You never try to shingle from out here in. Just going to find our first feather track. We're just going to start lifting up those feathers. And we jump down to the next feather track. As you're lifting them up, you can start to see if there's a few of them out of line. You can grab your tweezers and start putting them back in the line. You can kind of get a general idea of what I'm doing here. As this caulking we put in starts to set up, this gets much easier because we literally just put this in there. It's not holding its position at all. You can kind of see what we're doing. You can start to see it venting out. You would want to continue that process all the way down the breast feathers. Again, it's going to take about a month for this latex caulking to set up. So at the 2-week point, you start shingling it. You shingle it every day for the next 2 weeks. And at about the 3.5 weeks to 4 weeks, it'll stick where you put it. And then you know you're done. For all intensive purposes, our bird is completed. We can set it aside and let it dry. If you're going to shingle it, again, come back after a couple weeks and start that process. Otherwise, the bird will be ready to finish up within 1 month because we use latex caulking in the breast feathers. If you use silicone and you had it in a dry room, you could finish this thing up within a week. You want to monitor it every day and just make sure the feathers are all staying where you put them. And you want to check the legs, make sure there's nothing seeping out of them and that they're drying correctly. When the toes are tight, you also know it's dried and ready to finish. After about 2 weeks, you'll be able to come back and pull your tape and the wings will stay. The silicone in the back is set up probably already on our bird, which has just been a couple hours ago since we started the mounting process. Overnight is basically what I say set up for silicone because it's a relatively thin layer back there. And it's just a matter of monitoring it. So after a month, you can pull all the tape. You can cut the eye pin from here, pull this eye pin, and take the bird off of its base and transfer it to your other base and get it finished. As you'll see on here, we did not paint the hairs on the head yet. That'll be during the finishing process. We'll do that. So in the next video, we'll go over finishing.